Today we are remaking this. That was Heaven Takes You Home by Swedish House Mafia off their new album. And if you didn't notice, that was not the actual song that was playing behind the video. I tricked you. That was the remake we are going to break down today. I'm going to show you how that's made. For those who don't know who I am, my name is Zach Edward. I'm a teacher here at Cosmic Academy, and we're an artist development program that's been around now for about 10 years. We've had about 500 students come through the program. They've seen some remarkable results. They signed to some of the biggest labels in dance music like Spinnin, Toolroom, Anjuna, Armada. They play some of the biggest shows in festivals like EDC, Ultra. And we've recently relaunched this YouTube channel to kind of shift gears and offer some of our lessons from our premium product, the Artist Development Program, here for free on the YouTube channel. So we hope you enjoy this. Let's get into the actual video, and hopefully you will be able to learn something from this as well. All right, now this is not a typical YouTube video where I'm going to tell you to wait till the end so I can give you some secret. I'm going to give you that secret right now. What I learned from making this Heaven Takes You Home remake, the most important thing I learned is that clicking the like button on this video will increase your production skills by 87%. So do that right now. Click the like on this video. Boom, you feel better, you leveled up. Let's now figure out how to remake Heaven Takes You Home. Okay, so starting with the drums, here is my kick. You'll see any kind of processing I've done, keep in mind, this was me trying to achieve the exact same sound, or as best as I could, to the original. So is this the way I process every kick? Is this the way I process every clap? Probably not, but I think it's a better example of doing what we need to do to kind of achieve a certain type of sound. So keep all that in mind. As far as the kick goes, sounds like this. So they just had this like little bit of boxiness punch that I don't know, I didn't really have in this area. So between like 100 and 300 hertz, just giving a little bit of a bump, a little bit of saturation on there as well, was not saturating the fundamental down low. Just taking a little bit of the top click out. All right, as we move on to the claps, I have two of them, and this is a great layering strategy in general. Typically, it's nice to have a clap down the middle and a clap out wide, giving you kind of the best of both. So this is my first clap that's in the center. Next is the clap that comes out wide. Together. Now, if I also zoom in, you'll see I do a little bit of pre-shifting. So I nudge the center clap before and after the initial click of my kick drum. The little finger snap one is much quieter. I just try and kind of keep the loud transient parts off of the downbeat right here, as you could see, right? If I go up, try and keep that off generally. But this is mixed so much quieter, it's not really going to interfere too much. So this just creates some separation for my kick to come through. Okay, then we have the groove snare, which is a major element of this drop. For this, just a basic kind of snare, sounds like a drum machine type snare. I don't remember what sample pack I got this from specifically, but as far as processing goes, just a little bit of EQ, kind of bumping up that bottom part. Also, soft clipping here and just trying to shave off some peak volume, get some added noise and distortion is always nice, as well as a little bit of transient shaper. So I love the SPL Transient Designer because you can kind of shape the front and tail, and you can make things just punchy, a little bit more dynamic and tight. So gives like a short snappiness to it, which I really like. Next, we have the hi-hats. This was just a basic hat I programmed, also using frequency shifter just to change the pitch. I love frequency shifter on drums. Kind of never used this plugin for a while, and it's amazing when you want to shift things and kind of get it in pitch. Now I also, like I did with the claps, I have the same approach with my hats where I have one down the center, one out wide. So the one out wide is this. And this is the one that's really providing the high-end energy, the noise, the top end. Finally, some 16th note hats, and they are rolling with some swing on them. Logic 16th at a 57. All my drums were, even the ones that I flattened, were using the same swing, so it gives it a little bit of vibe. As far as group processing, I'm just doing a little bit of parallel compression using the 1176. So I'm basically slamming this thing and then just mixing the volume back in underneath the original. It brings out the tails. It brings out a lot of that like high-end noise, adds a bit of energy and like hype factor to my drums, which is really cool. At the end, just doing a little bit of cleanup with some EQ, shelving out some of the high-end 18K using the backs. And again, that's me just trying to mimic the sound of their drums a little bit more. All right, let's jump to the bass group. We'll bring this into the picture now. Now, one thing I noticed with their bass line was they had a lot of these little passing notes, right? Instead of just going from note to note to note to note, as far as the progression goes, they had all these little passing notes in between that add a little bit of grooviness and vibe, kind of classic sound, classic Swedish House Mafia sound. And the other layer is just this bass pad that's kind of on top, adding some space. Also fill in some higher frequency. So the actual bass patch itself, pretty simple. We're working with a basic mini, and on this oscillator here, we're at -3 octave. I have another one playing an octave higher. That's also detuned with some voices of unison here. Pause this if you want, screenshot it, copy my settings, totally cool with that. Here's the sub. So what I like to do is on this basic mini, it's -3. On this sub, it's a sine wave at -3. But what I do is take out, where is it? The fundamental. So if you go to process, remove fundamental, this will take out the lowest fundamental frequency from this saw wave, which is nice because now I get this sine wave to play that sub underneath with its own volume level knob. And this saw wave is still giving me the overtones without that heavy low end. So kind of cool. A little bit of filter control on it as far as the effects go, just working with a tiny bit of distortion here. So it's just a fat saw wave, and you'll notice as I kind of add these extra corrective EQs rolling off the high end, this gives us that extremely filtered down sound. A little bit of Pultec, just doing the extreme bottom. Pro Q, removing the sides. So this is a really cool tip for these kind of patches. If you have this really low kind of like saw wave bass line that is stereo, you don't need the low end to be in stereo. That can cause some weird phase issues when it does get summed to a mono subwoofer. So a lot of times just cut what's on the sides. Roughly around 100 number isn't so important. Just understand that the sub is going to be down here. You don't need all that low end on the sides. You can keep what was left in the middle. And then just a basic sidechain. Next will be this pad layer here. Some Nexus preset. You could see really just trying to get some atmosphere. I noticed it in the breakdown. You're able to hear they had this like atmospheric pad layer. Using the Haas effect just to make it wide. I don't give a shit about translation on this sound. Some basic sidechain, bandpass EQ here, and we're golden. Let's go to the pad group next. We'll save the leads for the end. I call this my pad group. It's just 3 layers I put in here. I don't know if they're necessarily pads. One of them is like a really important counter melody lead. So you'll see what it is. This is the group. Then I'll bring in the bass group and the drums so you can start to hear things come together. Then we'll go through each sound individually. Now in this group, I have a high pad and a low pad. And I will be honest, the one thing I really just kind of feel like I was missing in my version versus the original are like these like lower mids. There's a little more full sounding, and it's probably coming from this layer here. Here is the progression. Now, what was interesting about this is slightly different than what our baseline progression was playing. So kind of cool to see from a writing perspective, the baseline was doing its own thing. These chords are kind of doing their own thing. And as far as the patch goes on this, basic saw waves. As you can see, once again, pause this, screenshot it. 2 oscillators being used, some voices of unison, detuned, a little bit. Filter on it, getting rid of the high end. We're going to have a lot of highs coming into the picture, using a bit of multiband as well. Really kind of brings it alive. EQing the hell out of it, just to, again, make it fit in context of the mix. These two were doing nothing. And some basic sidechain. All right, so this high layer here comes from the Korg M1, and you'll start to see this is like a recurring theme for the remainder of the tutorial we have, where I found a lot of the sounds from the Korg M1. Did they use this? Probably not. I have no idea, but I found a lot of applicable sounds in here. So quickly, let me bring it back up. The patch is called I Saw Wind. I don't really remember what bank it was in specifically, but I Saw Wind was the name of the patch. You'll hear it's just a very high, energetic, lot of noise, lot of energy kind of sound. Doing some EQ there. Same with the Dangerous Backs, my favorite EQ when I want to remove high end. It's such a gradual slope. They have a filter and they have a shelf. So you could see at 7.1K, I'm -5, and I'm rolling off the high end at 7.5K. So if I kind of A/B this on and off, listen. What I love about this specific EQ is it gets rid of that nasty shit on top, and it still sounds so bright, alive. It doesn't dull the sound out. So when it comes to cleaning up high end, this is always my go-to EQ. Really, really good. This is part of Plugin Alliance. It's also in UAD. Just a little bit of sidechain at the end. All right, the final layer we're going to look at is a pretty important one. This is like that kind of melodic saw wave we hear. Okay, so let's start from the synth. Created this one from scratch, which was just, again, basic patch. 2 saw waves, octave apart. So if we kind of go one by one, that's the higher one. That's the lower one, much quieter. You could see in the level as well. Next, I do have a Redux. Their sound just had this like downsampled sound to it where there was like this wispy high end. It sounded old. So that's what this is. I am doing some crazy EQ again to just achieve the shape I heard in the original. So you can see there's some EQ here, washing it like hell with reverb. And notice I'm doing this as an insert, not as a send and return. I am purposely trying to wash away dry signal. See how this kind of softens the original sound? It creates some distance. It's not upfront in your face again. That's what happens when you use reverb like this, where you just drop it on as an insert and turn the mix knob. If this is your dry signal, you lose dry as you gain wet. There's this inverse relationship to the wet reverb and the dry signal. It's push-pull. Whereas if I use a send and return, you would hear that screechy dry synth the whole time, and we would add reverb to it. I didn't want that. I wanted to lose that harshness. So putting the reverb directly on, you could see more EQ. These aren't doing anything. And then a little bit of sidechain. On to the lead group as our final group of instruments here. If you're still watching at this point and you're not already subscribed, click the subscribe button. We put out videos all week long. We have a ton of content coming. I don't want you to miss anything in the future. So yeah, if you're still sitting here watching this, just hit the subscribe button. We'll have plenty more good stuff coming. All right, these leads, I have 3 of them, and I'm going to be honest with you. These were just luck. Like, to find these leads took me the longest time, and I don't think they're the correct leads. It's close, but let me kind of dissect what I heard and how that started my approach to figure out what they used. So initially hearing the song, the leads sound like this is a group. Okay, I heard like electric piano, I heard like almost like clicky clacky, sounded like a guitar pluck, but like a Korg M1 sounding guitar pluck. I didn't know where to start. I just heard certain characteristics, and you will notice 2 of my 3 layers, I did go to the Korg M1. I tried like the Yuhi Repro a couple times for some of their key and like bell and mallet presets, trying to find the right sound. I don't know what it is, but I think it's just that world of sounds was the right choice, and I came pretty close. So keep that in mind. These aren't the exact patches. All right, so the first layer is in the guitar plucked section of the Korg M1. It's called Flat Top, and it sounds like this. Okay, now if we go down the processing chain, we have first an EQ to just clean some shit up. OTT because it's OTT. Reverb. So let me show you what I did on the reverb here. I got rid of, using mid-side EQ, a lot of what was going on in the mids. Also on the sides, I cut out a shit ton of low end just so that we don't have like that mud down here on the reverb. And because this synth was mono, I wanted some kind of stereo-ness to the sound, and I used reverb to get that. I'm also sidechaining it back to the original sound using track spacer. So the reverb is ducking around the actual piano, and if I remember correctly, I did this in mid-side mode, so it's only ducking the mid portion of my reverb from the original sound because my original sound was in mono in the middle portion. So the reverb's really only playing on the sides. It's ducking in the middle. It's not ducking on the sides. It's almost like you can't put your finger on it, but it just gets muddy when I turn off track spacer. That's because all the reverb comes back in the middle where the original piano was. So, or whatever it was. It wasn't even a piano. Next is Soothe, just cleaning some things up. Random preset. Barely working. A little more EQ. Sidechain. Now we'll jump over to the second lead. This is also coming from the Korg M1, same guitar plucked category over here. And it is the Ham Dulcimer. Ham Dulcimer, whatever that is. All right. Basic little band pass, clean some things up. Kind of fattening it up, pronouncing the transients a bit more. I love the Ableton drum bus. I just use it as a plugin. Like, you can add distortion, drive, crunch, compression, transient shaping, all within this plugin. Don't think of it just for drums. You could use it on anything. It's a really cool plugin. Next is a bit of EQ. Using dynamic EQ on the high end here. So every time it hits, tick, 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 just kind of reacting to that and lowering it a little bit. Similar to multi-band compression. Also clipping a little bit. Just catching the extreme random peaks, very, very, very small. Widening this one using the Haas effect. Sidechain. So lead 1 sits here, lead 2 sits out here, and finally lead 3 is going to be these bells. Purposely leaving some reverb on within the synth. I wanted to wash these out. We have EQ. And then the secret sauce to this whole track is obviously the white noise downlifters. They are what they are, right? So this is the track as a whole. Go back, rewind it, save presets, copy the settings if you'd like. I think though, just a sound set, I'm definitely going to save some of these as instrument racks for myself. It's a really nice sound set. Things work well together. There were some cool things I learned from this. If you're ever interested in learning, try and remake these songs. I put these out to help everyone, obviously, but I also do it to help myself. I learned a ton from watching these, so I hope you learned something as well. I hope there's a takeaway from this. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.